Chapter 5, Planning for and Recruiting Human Resources. LOs. Discuss how to plan for human resources needed to carry out organizational strategy, determine the demand for workers in various job categories, summarize the advantages and disadvantages of ways to eliminate a labor surplus and avoid labor shortage, describe recruitment policies organizations use to make job vacancies more attractive, list and prepare sources of job applicants, describe the recruiter's role in the recruitment process, including limits and opportunities. The process of human resource planning, HR planning. So helps organizations meet business objectives and gain a competitive advantage. Compares present organizations with goals for future. Identifies what challenges must be made to meet the goals. So when you look at these organizations, the process for HR planning, so it helps organizations meet their objectives and gain competitive edge. So when businesses are trying to be competitive out here, everybody has competition and they want to be competitive. Well, they have to do things to be proactive to stay ahead of the competition. Compares present organization with goals for the future. Look at what type of company you are, who you are, what it is you do, and most importantly, where is it you're trying to go? And make sure your goals for today are in line with where you're trying to go in the future. Identifies what changes must be made to meet those goals. So knowing who you are and what your goals are and where you're trying to go, you got to identify too, if you're not where you need to be, what changes do you need to make? And if you have to make changes, you have to implement them. Again, this is being proactive, because if you don't do that, what you'll find is you'll find yourself in a situation where you're trying to move from the day into the future. And then you realize, oh, we made some mistakes and things we didn't do. That's no longer proactive. Now you're doing reactive, and that's damage control. That's not the way you want to run your business. 3 stages identifying these changes is forecasting. It's looking into the future and figure out what it is you need to do, what it is you need, what you need and where you're trying to go. Goal setting and strategic plan. What are your goals? Once you figure out what your goals are, set the goals, then what is your strategy? Your strategic plan, then how do you achieve those goals? That's what your strategic plan is. Program implementation and evaluation. So once you implement a program, you have to, first of all, you have to implement a program, and then you have to evaluate it. Is it working? Is it working to help you goals to meet to accomplish your goals and have the strategic plan to get there? And if not, you have to tweak it. Overview of the human resource planning process. So let's take a look at it. Forecast of labor demand. And you see forecast of labor supply. So labor demand, labor supply. Okay, you see on forecast of labor demand, forecast of labor surplus or shortage, forecast of labor supply. So you see they feed in. One's feeding from the left, one is feeding from the right. And then from there it goes down to goal setting and strategic planning, where you do that phase, which we talked about. And then from there, it goes to the program implementation and evaluation, which we discussed. So, in which step of the human resource planning process is downsizing most likely to occur? Look at the answers there. And what do you think it is? Here's your answer. The goal setting and strategic planning. The process of human resource planning. So forecasting. The first step in HR planning is to forecast. It predicts labor shortages and surplus. Can use statistical methods of subjective judgment. So this is about forecasting. It isn't. What is it you think you need? How is it okay. And it can't be a gut instinct. You actually have to use data and intelligence and talking to people in an interview to figure this out. And what it will help you do is predict your labor shortages and surpluses. Because one of the things is when you can predict those, you can prepare for them accurately. And again, you're using statistical methods and subjective knowledge. This subjective knowledge is coming a lot of times from within your organization. The process of human resource planning, forecasting the demand for labor. So look, trend analysis. Constructing and applying statistical models that predict labor demand for the next year. given relatively objective statistics from the previous year. So look, it's like this. If you know where you came from, it gives you a good indication of where you're going. This is why you go back and look at last year and you look at this. This is how people can project a lot of things such as growth, etc. Leading indicators. Objective measures the accurately predict future labor demand, measures of economy, actions of competitors, changes in technology, trends and composition of workforce and overall population. So when you're looking at these leading indicators and stuff, you're not only just looking at you and your business, but you're also looking at what's out in the economy and what's going on out there with the competitors, changing in technology trends. You're factoring all those things into place. Transitional matrix. So this is a chart that lists job categories held in one period and shows the proportion of employees in each of those job categories in a future period. Answers two questions. Where did people in each job category go? Where did people currently in each job category come from? So when you're looking at this, when you look at supply and demand, you're thinking about, where did people go from that job category? Do they promote up? Do they promote out? Or do they burn out? And where do the people currently come from? Where are you getting them? From what? Are they coming from primarily external hires or what? These are questions you want to know the answers to. And this is going to be very important in helping you when it comes to forecasting. Trends in the trade. So as the average age of many workers' skilled trade grows, the coming demand for workers in many trades is expected to outstrip supply. How can HR managers prepare for this? So looking at this, you look at here. This is a transitional matrix example for an auto parts manufacturer, 1919. So you see this looking at going up to 2022. You see this list is the job categories for this auto parts manufacturer. And at the left, in 2019, the numbers at the right show what happened to the people in 2022. The numbers reflect our proportions. For example, 95 means 95% of the people represented by a row in the matrix. The column heading of the 2022 refers to the number of rows. But this is an example of a matrix that you would use. Determine a labor surplus or shortage. Planners can compare forecasts for labor demand and supply. We'll show projected shortages and surpluses in each category. Allow organizations to plan how to address these challenges. So when you're looking at that, this is, again, if you're a forward thinker and you're really trying to go move your company forward and be proactive, these are important questions that you need to know. Where my shortages will be and where my surpluses be. And if you give an idea of where they may be, then you also will have an idea how you need to make adjustments. Goal setting and strategic planning. Numerical goals provide basis for measuring success. Goals should come from analysis of supply and demand. HR strategies must be used to achieve goals. Options differ widely in expense, speed, and effectiveness. Options to address surplus cause varying degrees of suffering. Options to address shortage may, in terms of how easily the organization can undo change. So when you're looking at this, when it's about achieving those goals, you got to look at the analysis and stuff. But most importantly, you need to be able to measure. You got to be able to measure. Give an example. Where did we start? Where are we at now? Where are we trying to go? In order to do that, you got to measure. And then you have external things that can factor in, such as expense, speed, and effectiveness. A lot of things. Give you an example. If there's a raw material, something that comes in that's involved in the process. If there's let's say some type of test that's involved that you're testing applicants, whatever with, and the expense of that test goes up. Their expenses of your expense go up. So, it's just little things, a lot of little things that can factor into it. Options for reducing a labor force, reducing labor surplus. So one of the ways you use is downsizing. Speeds of results is fast. Amount of suffering is high. Anytime you hear this, you always hear about it catches people off guard. They go to work on Monday morning, and by Monday at lunchtime that day, they are let go, downsizing, and they never know till the last minute. Pay reductions. Speed of results is fast, it's high. Bottom line is this. Reason this is high, suffering, because if you show me somebody who makes $150,000 a year, I'll show you somebody who has a lifestyle that lives up to that. So if you reduce them from $150,000 a year down to $110,000, that's a lot of suffering. And it's usually not just employee, but that's family too. Demotions, fast, amount of suffering is high. A lot of times when you see this is going to be the mental suffering. I heard people say that they're humiliated, they felt ashamed. A lot of other things factor into it. Transfers, fast, results fast, but the amount of suffering is moderate. Because think about it, you're no longer working where you used to work, now you're working somewhere else. And within the same company, but they just moved you. Work sharing, fast and moderate suffering. And the low is natural attrition, slow and low. You know what attrition means? Natural attrition means basically we're going to wait till people retire to get the numbers down, or people resign or leave the company. Get down. Early retirement is slow. That's going to fall within that right up under the natural. And retraining is slow. So we don't get rid of people, but we do retrain them to do other things. Options for avoiding labor shortage. So here's some of the things you can look at. And I won't read through all of these, but I will tell you, look at one of the first things that's most common is overtime. You see that? And then they do get with the speed of results slow and low. It's technical innovation. Opposite ends of the spectrum. You see all the things that's in between. Goal setting and strategy planning. So core competency, knowledge and skills that make organizations superior to competitors and create a value of customers. Organizations benefit from hiring and retaining employees who provide core competency. See, this right here is a couple of things when you have an organization. You must have good leadership, but there's something else that you must have, core competency. And I'll give you an example. Why is it that one company can go and do something and do really well at it, but then another company does the exact same thing, or is a competitor, and they are really doing bad at it? One of the reasons could be either your leadership is not the same, but I must say it probably may have something to do with your core competency, the knowledge and skills of your people within the organization. One organization might have a lot of skilled and knowledgeable people who've been doing it for a while. The other one may have folks who are not very skilled and knowledgeable and haven't been doing it very long. So when you look at that core competency, Apple Store employees provide the company with a core competency that makes the organization superior to competitors and creates a value for its customers. So when you go into these places, you see that they're nice and clean. A lot of times, the few times I've been in Apple, I've never met anybody there who wasn't knowledgeable about what they do and their customer service, and they were always willing to reach out to you. And it seemed like they always had enough people in there working to make sure that if multiple customers came in, they could address it. The process of human resource planning, downsizing, planned elimination of large numbers of personnel with 4 main objectives. And these objectives is to reduce costs, replace labor with technology, mergers and acquisitions, moving to more economical locations. May hurt long-term organizational effectiveness, loss of talent, and demoralize employees. So when you look at this, downsizing, it's always seems like it is demoralizing, and it does inflict a lot of pain, and it can set an organization back. But when you see these things, and with private industry, they have cycles. Every so many years, they will go through this. And these are the 4 main reasons why, listed right here. So reducing hours. So alternatives to downsizing. Reducing hours, seen as a way to spread burden more fairly. Less costly than layoffs that require severance pay. Early retirement programs. Workforce is aging and many older workers did not want to retire. COVID-19 changed this trend. Many companies still offer early retirements to reduce costs. And COVID was a game changer globally. So some of the things that transpired that happened as a result of, we do now as a result of COVID, we still do, and this is one of them. But alternatives to downsizing, you are seeing this too. I remember years ago when the scene is when I saw that they were reducing people's hours and seeing as a way to spread the burden more fairly. So people who are normally full-time and were getting 40 hours, they may be down to 30 hours now. Of course, they're making less money, but they still have a job and they still have benefits. Options to avoid a shortage: employing temporary and contract workers. Most widespread method to eliminate shortage, gives employees more flexibility and lower cost. Disadvantaged workers not committed. And you see a lot of organizations now, to include the federal government, that has not temporary so much, but contract workers. And they'll come in. And one of the things about it was, one of the disadvantages, they're not as committed, particularly with temporary people. If they only know they're there 90 days, they're not vested. And a lot of times they're not. And if it's temporary, let me give you an example. If it's temporary and it's up in 90 days and it's over, or if it's temporary with a potential of getting hired, you might see a different type of employee. The one who's got the potential of getting hired maybe do a better job. Outsourcing, contracting other organizations to provide broad set of services. Overtime and expected hours. Workers appreciate added compensation in short term, and in the long run, workers feel less stressed and frustrated from working long hours. So you see, outsourcing could be a way to have somebody else, a third party, do some of the services for you. And overtime and expanded hours, again, they both have good consequences and some bad consequences when you look at in the long run for that, short and long term. Public accounting of 250 employees realizes that they have a surplus of 15 support personnel, not auditors. What do you think they should do? Take a look at the options here. Okay, I'm going to say there's not one answer it could be different answers within this stuff. I would probably say to downsize the people in those positions. Implement and evaluating the HR plan. Someone must be accountable for achieving goals, should have authority and resources needed, should issue regular progress reports. So you got to have somebody who's being accountable for these processes when you go through. And that's usually going to be somebody within HR. And it's usually, you have a manager's accountable for it, but they would usually have not one, but multiple people assigned to this. Talent management ties planning and recruitment efforts to the organization's strategy, employee development. So when you're looking at the talent management, you got to look at the planning, the recruitment of, I'll give you an example. Or you make your plans accordingly, and then you recruit the right type of people to execute those plans and strategy. Evaluation should identify which parts of the planning process contributed to the success or failure and measure the efficiency of the processes. So you got to know if something's working. Here's what you do. When you evaluate something, you need to know if it's a failure or success, but you need to understand why it was. Applying HR planning to affirmative action. Workforce utilization review. Comparison of the proportion of employees in protected groups with the proportion that each group represents in relevant labor force. Assesses current utilization patterns. Forecasts how utilization patterns are likely to change in the future. And certain groups are underutilized. Goals and a plan are established. So when they're taking this in consideration, they're looking at who they're hiring. They break it down to all different types of different segments of people, and you want to see if there's patterns that you have. And give you, for instance, let's say that you had a process where you wanted to ensure that you hire a certain percentage of veterans and stuff, and so you take a look at the patterns and see do you have the numbers that you want to have? If so, what type of patterns that got you there? What establishment did you do? And if you find out that it's underutilized and underrepresented, then you come up with a plan to try to figure out how to get to raise the numbers or hire more veterans. So recruiting, any activity carried on by an organization with the primary purpose of identifying and attracting potential employees. Builds a supply of potential hires within company needs. 3 aspects of recruiting: personnel policies, recruitment sources, recruitment characteristics, and behavior. So when you look at this is about looking at, what type of people are we trying to bring in the organization? Where do you go to find them? Establishing a pipeline, a supply, of potential hires when the company needs it. Go to agencies or peoples or organizations. And then you got to look at your personnel policies, your recruitment sources, and recruitment characteristics and behaviors. These are the things that helps when you have recruiters who are aware of that, they also understand what type of people I should be recruiting. And here's the most important thing, what type of people you should not be recruiting. That's really important. 3 aspects of recruiting. Job choice. So you have personnel policies, recruitment traits and behaviors, recruitment sources. So you see vacancies and characteristics plus job choice, applicant characteristics. So when we know what the characteristics are for those vacancies and we see the job, now what type of applicant characteristics are we looking for? And when I used to recruit for the federal government for jobs and stuff, these were some of the things that I always knew what the vacancy characteristics were, the job, what type of job it was, and what type of applicant characteristics was I looking for. And by doing that, you can probably give yourself a higher chance of success of getting the right type of applicants. Internal versus external recruitment. Internal policies promote from within, opportunities for advancement for more job to people. Lead the market pay strategies. Pay is important job characteristic for most applicants. Recruiting is an advantage when pay for a job is more than current market wages. So, when you look at the internal people, when they're seeking for promotion from within, one of the advantages is that who you're hiring because they already work there. And realistically, too, for these applicants, a lot of times they're looking for, a higher pay and better positions. Employment at will. Employer-employee may end employment relationship at any time unless otherwise stated in the contract. Due process policy. Employee may appeal termination. So when you look at employment at will, this is say, I can quit at any time. The employer can let you go at any time. I can go at any time. Due process. If someone feels like they've been terminated unfairly, then the employee may appeal the termination. It's kind of like going to court. Social presence and reputation. The image of the organization impacts its reputation in attraction to prospective recruits. So how you deal with employees and particularly how they leave and how you deal with that matter, that's your reputation, and that's what gets out there. The internet provides many opportunities to build a positive image and recruit people, but it also provides opportunities for people to say bad things about a company if they're not on the up and up or they don't treat people fairly. Internal sources. So you see internal sources, you see when you have this is things like communication about job vacancy to other employees and organization includes company bulletin boards, employee publications, corporate intranets. And so again, you see these a lot of times in all organizations. And sometimes you might see where they advertise, they're not external at all, they're only internal. And the advantage is it generates applicants who are well known to the organization. You already know who they are. Applicants are knowledgeable about the position, minimize unrealistic job expectations, cheaper, faster than looking outside. External. Candidates entry level or specialized positions used when there are no internal recruits. May recruit through direct applicants and referrals websites and various other means. So anytime you got to go bring people from outside, that usually means that you don't have people inside that can fill those positions. Particularly if they're entry level or specialized positions, you're going to have to go outside. Advantages, many direct applicants are already sold on the organization. Self-selection eases pressure on recruitment, and referrals may appear as an unfair hiring practice or nepotism. And nepotism is basically meaning you're hiring people like family and friends. Top recruiting sources based on U.S. job applicants. So, company career portal. Recruiting sources based on the top U.S. job applications. So you see company, you see Indeed, LinkedIn, Facebook, ZipRecruiter, Google, employee referrals, recruiters. So, and you see the external sources here too, which we all are very familiar with. So these external sources, they help wanted advertising placed in online and offline media. And you look at some of these other places that we've seen. We're all familiar with these. Now, here's something too you may have forget. Ghost jobs. Develop a pool of qualified job seekers for the employer. So it's always like, as a recruiter, I would always try to keep some ghost, some applicants available on the side for in a time of need. So external sources, public employment agencies. So you look at the Social Security Act of 1935 requires everyone receiving unemployment compensation to be registered with a local state employment office. So you have people who lose their jobs and are laid off and displaced and stuff. This act covers that. Employers can register their job vacancies with the local state employment office. So they can, for people who are unemployed, they're seeking jobs, they can go there to look for jobs as well. Private employment agencies, white collar jobs, employers pay a fee for the referral. So this is when you go to somebody who actually, let's say my business is I have employed a private employment agency. So you come to me and I help supply you with applicants for your jobs. And so here's some other external sources, which we're all familiar with: colleges and universities, internships, job fairs. And this is where recruiters will be going. Evaluating the quality of a source. So you look at yield ratio. So when you think of terms of yield ratio, this is what are you getting out of it? So percentage of applicants who move from one stage of recruitment and selection process to the next. Compare yield ratios of different sources to determine which most efficient for each type of vacancy. So I give you an example. Let's say that we're getting applicants from the military and we're getting applicants from college, and we're getting applicants who are civilian mature experienced workers. So in each one of those categories, we want to see how many of them make it from one stage to the next, and ultimately how many of them make it to the point where they get hired. Then you go back and look at the ratio. You can see which groups are succeeding at a higher ratio, and that should tell you who you should primarily target for that position in the future. Cost per hire. So you look at the total amount spent for vacancy, divide amount spent using recruitment source and amount of hires for source. Low cost per hire indicates efficient recruitment source. So obviously, they're going to be spent money in doing all these recruitment endeavors. You want to go and take a look and see, well, where am I spending the least amount of money and getting the biggest amount of bang for my money? Recruiter traits and behaviors. So characteristics and behavior of recruiter. Recruiters should be HR specialists or a specialist of job being filled. Applicants view warm, informative recruiters positive. Important to provide a realistic job review that includes both positive and negative aspects of the job. Ultimately, organizations' personnel policies are more impactful than recruiter in securing job acceptance. It's the recruiter that hooks them initially. If you have a good job at a good company and a bad recruiter, the number of applicants that would normally come, you'll get less applicants because the recruiter didn't do their job. If you have a good recruiter, they're warm, they're welcome, they know the job, they know what they're talking about. They almost come off like a salesman. And I got something that I know you want, and here's why you want it, because I'm going to tell you how great it is. The military trains its recruiters to operate that way. Enhancing the recruiter's impact. Recruiters should provide timely feedback. Applicants dislike delays and may draw negative conclusions. I can tell you right now, when people are going through processes and they're seeking and they're dealing with recruiters, they expect timely communications. If you don't, one of the things can happen is people will drop out of the hiring process. Recruiters should avoid offensive behavior. I don't know why any recruiter would ever do that because really the goal is to bring people into the organization, not run them away. Organizations may use teams to recruit. So a lot of times you have recruitment teams, particularly when you see them at large career fairs, like at large universities or military bases. Applicants view job experts as more credible than HR. It is true. When applicants are out at career fairs and places like that, they will prefer to talk to somebody who's done the job versus somebody who's just from HR when possible. And that's not always possible. But if you have different people with HR. Let's say that someone have different backgrounds or whatever else. Then that'll help. Recruiters team can include job experts and HR professionals, and that's the best way to do it. And that's a lot of times what I used to be involved in when I was doing recruitment for the federal government. Recruits who were offended by recruiters. So here's something that you can read at your leisure about when recruits were offended by recruiters. I can tell you this: if I was a manager over recruiters and I had a recruiter that was out there offending people, they wouldn't be a recruiter very long. I would get rid of them. That concludes this chapter.